So this week's topic for working remotely is thinking about developing an online profile. So particularly when we're having to work away from the university and we're not able to connect with people physically and to network with them, then we might be looking to other forms of online support. And there are lots of different ways you can do this. It might be through Twitter, it might be through writing a blog. But another way that people like to network and connect, and this will have a kind of lasting impact, is by using LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a way of managing your professional identity and has a particular reputation for those working in business. But it can also play a really important role for people currently in academia, whether you're thinking of staying within the university sector or whether you're thinking of going into business eventually. Now, of course, if you are looking for somebody at another university, most likely you're going to want to go to a departmental or faculty profile. And this is the case for many academics, but actually I know a number of students don't have access to any online sort of web space that's officially verified through the university. And so by using LinkedIn, your profile will be visible, particularly because it has really high ranking results within Google. Also, if you're not thinking of staying in academia, then it's a reputable way to promote yourself to businesses and to companies when you're thinking of applying for jobs. So LinkedIn is a networking tool. It is a way of engaging with other people, but also you might just want to think of it as a search engine to help you find other people or businesses or organizations or universities. And if you think about it as a search engine, in order to be found, you've got to have a reasonable presence on there. So when you're creating a profile, it's really important that you create all parts of that profile so that you can be discovered easily. You can then connect with peers, think about personal development through it, obviously issues of student employability, and also, of course, sharing your learning or the impact of your research as well. And then if you do meet somebody at a conference, they can hopefully easily find you on LinkedIn, find out what you're interested in, and then perhaps connect with you. If you do have some university space, you can create a link on LinkedIn and they'll be able to find you that way. So as with all things that you create online, before you actually get started, it's really important to think about the purpose of what you're creating. Is it because you're looking for jobs and you want people to look for you on there and perhaps to be headhunted? Is it to network with other people to create a series of connections? Or is it a way of perhaps staying in touch with alumni once you've moved on? If you create a series of connections now, you'll then be able to touch base with them in future. As I've already mentioned, it's really important that whatever you do, you need to have a complete profile, and that way you'll be highly ranked within the search engine that is LinkedIn. Again, with any sort of online presence, you need to think about your privacy settings. Who can see what? What are you sharing with people every time that you edit something? And I think that's one thing in particular to go into straight away, is to go into the privacy settings and just turn off the option for all your connections to see the changes that you make. Otherwise, every time you update your profile, people are going to be notified. Now, of course, there might be times when you do want people to see changes that have happened if you've got a new job, something like that, if there's a big change in what you're doing. And in those cases, you could turn it on, make the change, that would notify people, and then turn it off afterwards. Then just take a few moments just to go through the other privacy settings, just to see that you're comfortable with what's being communicated to people and what they can read about you. The first thing you need to do when you're editing your profile is to deal with the header. And the header is the bit that you see at the top of the screen with a photograph of yourself, a background image, your name, and a few keywords about what you do. And it seems that the best thing to do with regard to the photograph is to make sure that your face fills that frame. So it should be a close-up photograph, a headshot, rather than you in the distance or a holiday photograph, something that means that people can really quickly recognize you. So if they've met you at a conference, they'll know it's you straight away. Also to think about how you look in that. If you're communicating what you do at the moment, that might not matter quite so much. But if you are looking for a job, if you're using your profile to connect with businesses, then you might want to change what you're wearing and to dress appropriately for that. Now, the headline is your job title by default, and that's what you can see on here. But you can customize that to use particular keywords to help others find you. You could list skills or little projects in there. It's very limited. You've only got 120 characters, so you're going to have to use keywords. But this could be your opportunity to make something snappier. And it's really important to think about what you put on there because this is the only portion that Google will return on a search results screen. Then think about the banner image. It'll come up with something generic, but this should be about you, not from the stock material that they supply. Again, this is going to make a huge impact. It's going to set you apart from others. This is going to be something that people remember when they're looking at your profile. You can also customize the URL as well to make that more relevant to you. The summary section is labeled the About section, but this is known as the summary section. This is your opportunity to outline what you've done in the past, what you're doing at the moment, and what you hope to do, where you want to go. Again, depending on how much you want to use this as a sort of tool for recruitment. Again, there is a character limit, this time 2,000 characters, so you've got the opportunity to go into a little bit more detail. But you can take a step away from the kind of CV style of writing and actually really put something down here to express yourself and to express your personality. So you don't necessarily need to have start dates and titles, but you can use it to put your career choice in context, what you're really passionate about, highlight some of your biggest achievements, show a sort of connection and a thread to what you've done and why you're doing it. There's a Now, the experience section is the one that probably is closest to a CV, but if you can try and make it as accessible as possible, again, giving as much detail as you can to show what you've done. So not just describing it, but going into as much detail. So if you've got case studies of things that you've done, any articles that you've written, presentations that you've given, if there's any links to media content, then that's really helpful as well. So if there's a recording of you giving a talk, or if you've created a poster and that's online through SlideShare, then this is a really good way to demonstrate that. And then people can see very, very quickly what it is, what you do, and how well you do it. There is actually a kind of separate project section as well, and this will let you add a lot more detail if you've got something that you really want to talk about. So explore this section, think about highlighting all the different roles you've had, the responsibilities, and any achievements that you've done during those roles. The education and certification section is quite straightforward, quite self-explanatory. This is where you're going to give you details of degrees, awards, extracurricular activities could come in here as well if you didn't put them into the experience section. And in the long term, this is a kind of useful section which is going to help you connect with alumni. People can see when you were at university. That's something that LinkedIn does. It often will say, you know, you were at university with this person at exactly the same time. So again, if you're going out into academia or the world of business, this can be a useful way to connect with people in the future. Now, the skills, endorsements, and recommendation section. This is one that is kind of gets towards the bottom of the screen. You can't always be bothered to fill in. And depending on what you want to use your profile for, it depends how much you want to work on these sections. But if you are looking at this as a tool for recruitment, then it's definitely worth having a look here and seeing how much you can fill in. What the reason for this section is really to be able to provide a bit more confidence in what you do, to add credibility to your experience. One of the basic things you can do is just go in and add skills that are relevant to your needs. So that's a very sort of easy, quick win. If you've got a little bit more time, you could take a skills assessment if you've got any particular software packages or computer skills that you use. There are some assessments there. You can get a verified skills badge on your profile if you think that would be helpful. The endorsements will take a little bit more hard work. First of all, go through your list and think who deserves an endorsement from you. Is there anyone that you could endorse? And that's quite a good way to kind of then invite an endorsement back. And then recommendations is a kind of even more detailed version of the endorsement, and this takes things a bit further, almost like a reference actually, and this is a testimonial that will be written to illustrate your experience. So if there's a particular skill that you want to highlight, something that you've been doing recently, then see if you're willing to get somebody to make a recommendation. Think about who you would most value the recommendation from, and then really personalize your request when you write to them. As we said, a little bit like a reference. Another thing that LinkedIn is really well known for is this idea of making connections with other people. So going around and connecting with people either currently in your research group or in your department or supervisors. Particularly if you think you might be moving on from Cambridge at some point, then this is a good way to connect with them now, and then you can look back and connect with them in the future. But also to reach out to people that you might meet at a conference, or people who work in a similar field, but you're not going to have the opportunity to meet with them. They might work on the other side of the world. So going out there, making connections. You can just do this very quickly and easy. So if you know somebody, you can just click on connect with them. If you don't know them so well, then it's definitely worth customizing your message. Also, if you've sort of met them once and you want to reinforce that in-person meeting, then you can tailor your message accordingly then, saying, we really good to meet you last week. It'd be great if we could connect. Perhaps we could chat sometime. Another use for LinkedIn is to find out what organizations that are related to your field of expertise are doing. So there's news on there, there's sometimes webinars, there are various comment postings as well. You can comment on these, you can share your ideas with relevant organizations as well. And this gives a little bit of context to your LinkedIn profile. So you can follow relevant influencers and businesses and organizations and share with others, what you think about what they're doing at the moment. So this is kind of a way of demonstrating a passion for what you do. And this might be particularly useful if you find that the field of work that you're planning to go into is slightly different from your current degree interests. Of course, there are lots of other ways to promote yourself online, and we'll look at some of these in other videos, but just quickly to highlight a few of them, as we've mentioned already, this idea of having a departmental profile. If you've got some web space, then it's a really good way to do that. Make use of it. It lends authenticity to what you're doing and credibility to what you're doing. People are likely to put your name in and University of Cambridge if they've read something you've written or if they've seen you at a conference. So do make use of any departmental faculty online space that's given to you. If you're already publishing, then you might want to look at Google Citations, and this is a tool specifically for authors. It can be totally private if you want to, and you can just monitor how your publications are going, but also there is a public-facing element as well, and you have control over what is in that public-facing profile. And as with anything online, we would always recommend that you constantly go in and tidy things up. Make sure that the articles that have been attributed to you are actually yours. You can update information about yourself. You can put an image up there as well so that people can find you easily. So think about other profiles that might exist about you on tools, even if you're not using them regularly. Then there are other sort of academic networking sites such as academia.edu and ResearchGate. The thing to remember about these is that they are for-profit organisations. They are not considered recognised repositories for open access material, which is perhaps what they're rather well known for, is going out there and finding research, but it's not an approved way for you to upload material if you're wanting to share material widely. The best tool to use would be Apollo, which is University of Cambridge's institutional repository as well. So thank you very much for listening. If you've got any particular questions, then please do make sure that you get back in touch with us. You can either do that with my email, academicskills@wolfson.cam.ac.uk, or you can contact me on Teams.